Uh, yes. Welcome to this preparation information session on our 2027 pilgrimage to Scotland. And yes, those who are here in person are joking that this recording is being made because this is a Saturday in September in Alabama. And why would you ever schedule a meeting on a Saturday when football will be soon beginning? So,
But we did schedule it at 9 a.m.
that's right. No, I mean, you're only missing the pregame shows right now.
Game day.
Yes. So, yes, this is true. This is true. Well, we will begin in prayer because that's always a really good place to begin. So, the Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. God of the journey, you walked among us in Jesus, and your Spirit moves even now across the face of the earth. As pilgrims before us have done, may we set our hearts towards your sacred presence. Whether by mountain or sea, ancient chapel or bustling city, open our eyes to wonder, our ears to your whispers, and our souls to your peace. We give thanks for those who came before us, the Scottish bishops who laid hands on Samuel Seabury, the faithful who carried the gospel to rocky shores and highlands, and for the companions with whom we will journey. Bless our dreaming and planning today. Let it be the beginning of a sacred journey, not only across a map, but deep into your heart. In the name of Christ, our way, we pray. Amen. Well, speaking of the way, there is this movement that's called the Paperless Hymn Project. You maybe have heard me talk about this before, but there's this wonderful artist named Lindsay Scott who is part of this movement. And the whole point of the Paperless Hymnal Project is to get people out of the hymnals and up singing songs, kind of like Taizé style songs that you can kind of repeat over and over again. And the reason I'm bringing all of this up is I wanted to start our kind of conversation or this information session about pilgrimage and about our journeying together with this song called The Way Knows. And I've given you the lyrics there on your page, but I'm going to try to make this play up here, and hopefully it'll play on the recording as well. If not, just look up the song. This is for those recording. We'll figure it out here in the space, but it's called The Way Knows, and it's by Lindsay Scott. So let's see if I can get it to play. Is it playing? It is not playing. Hold on, let me. So, the reason I play that song for us, apart from it just being a beautiful, meditative kind of way of, at least for me, embracing that there's not a particularly right way to go on a journey like a spiritual journey, like a pilgrimage together. I also, I think I know that, and I brought this up maybe amongst this group, at least some of y'all before, that our bishop is very much into pilgrimage, our current bishop, Bishop Glenda. And she talks about how we're all pilgrims, right? Not necessarily even us having to go on a trip somewhere. We're all on this spiritual journey. But a journey like this, to go to Scotland, to be in a very different place, allows us to trust more deeply in the hospitality of strangers. It gets us outside of our comfort zone. It pushes us into these places where we have to do what that song is talking about, where we have to trust the way in a way that's different than when you're, in very familiar surroundings. And so, in addition to all the many other benefits that I think, a beautiful trip to Scotland it gives you, when we take this as a spiritual pilgrimage, what we're doing is we're going there on a deeper level to understand our own kind of journey in our daily lives in a different way. And so that's why I play that song to us, or for us, this this moment, because pilgrimage is not about certainty. It's about trusting the way. And so that's what our pilgrimage invites us into, is trusting that way more deeply, even when we don't really maybe feel comfortable with it. Of course, Rosemary and I are not planning to put you in any danger. That's not our intention. I mean, you took out the skydiving, right?
Yeah, I took out the repellent.
It was rappelling. That's right. Yeah.
I left the
Skydiving's still in there. Okay. That's how we're getting to Scotland.
No, we're taking SpaceX.
Oh, very quickly. Yes, the price is going to jump a little bit then. Pilgrimage is not really about escaping life then. It's about like finding, you go in some ways on this journey to find yourself in your daily life, not to escape your daily life. And I think that kind of makes a big difference. We also think of ourselves in a very different way. We are not going as tourists, spiritual tourists. We're going as pilgrims. We're going to have a spiritual experience. And so that's really kind of getting us into what is pilgrimage. And before I go any farther, please at any point raise your hand. And I'm going to be talking about the kind of spiritual, deep kind of aspects of this, why this is appealing, what kind of I see as the shape and purpose of this. And then Rosemary's going to talk more about the details, the timeline, some of the kind of potential saints we'll be looking at, some sites that we might be visiting. And so if you have more technical questions, Rosemary's more the probably person to ask. If you have more kind of, what are we doing here? Kind of questions. I'm happy to answer those. And I want your input as well. If you feel like that's not a purpose of pilgrimage, please stop me and let's keep talking.
That, I envision, hold on, what am I trying to say? Fog.
Brain fog.
Many of the popular tourist places in Scotland are very spiritual places.
Yes.
So even though we're not going as tourists, I envision that we will be going to some of the more popular places because they, in and of themselves, are very spiritual.
Yeah.
Has anybody been to Scotland in this room?
Jean and Kathy and Rosemary. All right, that's good. Got a few.
And would you agree with that? Like the spiritual nature of Scotland is pretty robust.
It's a thin place, just generally speaking.
It's a very thin place.
Yeah.
I read a book that was set there and they talked about the thin places.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
I didn't spend enough time there to really know, and I was also 20 years old. So
Okay.
I was in a different place.
I was 22.
Okay.
Episcopalian, or anything else.
And everybody knows what we mean when we say thin space?
So a thin place, we typically think that God is present in all places at all times, right? Like that's the hope, that's the belief that we have. But there are particular places where it just is apparent, not just to one person, but to many people that God's Spirit is kind of dwelling more closely here, or we can feel it more palpably here. For a lot of people in our local context in the Episcopal Church, a lot of people will say Camp McDowell is the thin place for them because they've had spiritual experiences there, gone to Curcio or gone to camp there. But yeah, we're talking about places where people have been kind of going on pilgrimage for centuries or praying there for, a millennia, essentially, or more, in the same physical location. I mean, y'all, if we've spent 30 years making this place pretty holy, but imagine throwing on top of that several hundred more years, right? Like just how holy places become when they're soaked in prayer and faithfulness. So let's dive in. What is pilgrimage? Pilgrimage is ancient. It has been going on for, basically since, at least in the Christian context, since Jesus died, essentially. I mean, there's been this kind of sense of holiness around certain places in the life of Jesus, but then also in the way that Christianity has spread. So it has this connection deep in terms of our history. in particular, kind of traveling to the Holy Land as Christians is a powerful thing, but also to places where saints have lived, to spaces where heaven and earth feel especially close. That's another way of saying that thin space. So pilgrimage is something that is ancient. It is sacred. It's not just about the kind of geography, even though, as this cow understands, he's living in a beautiful space, right? The geography doesn't hurt the fact that, it's so beautiful in Scotland, does not hurt the trip going there and feeling the sacredness of it. But it's also, pilgrimage is also about the actual sacred spiritual discipline. We're going on this trip intentionally in a very kind of intentional way. So the whole point, hey Shane, welcome. The whole point of the pilgrimage is really to encounter God in a new and profound way. It's not, we're not doing something all that outlandish, like traveling over to a different country, walking around, seeing some things, but the intentionality of it allows us to kind of make more meaning out of the encounters. I mean, a bird, if you were sitting on a bench outside in the morning, right, and a bird flies up to you and then it flies off, like if you're in a certain mindset, you'd just be like, well, that bird just flew. But if you're in a certain mindset and you're kind of trying to pray and God then sends this bird to you, you're going to interpret that in a very different way, right? Like, at least I am. And so I think, part of pilgrimage is putting ourselves in this spiritual mindset, spiritual heart set, kind of getting there on a soul level so that we can experience whatever it is that we're experiencing together as a sacred kind of conversation with God. One of the things I've been kind of trying to lay as a foundation here since I got here is that, like, our whole lives are supposed to be our prayer. It's not just like what we do here on Sunday mornings. It's what we do all the time. And so pilgrimage invites us into kind of more contemplation about how every single step that we're taking, from dreaming about this to booking the trip to going and walking to, in these sacred places, all of that is part of that encounter with God. All right. So pilgrimage sacred. Pilgrimage is not vacation. I mean, it's not going to be like drudgery. Right. We're not going to be like telling you, all right, now sit silently here for 6 hours. Unless that's what you want, and then we'll try to make that happen for you, right? But yeah, pilgrimage is not vacation. Vacations are usually about escape and relaxation, and I'm not saying that there won't be some relaxation. There will certainly have some times of Sabbath. We'll build some of that in. But pilgrimage is really about discovery outside of ourselves and discovery inside of ourselves. Yes, there's going to be rest, there's going to be Sabbath, but there might be also moments when you feel challenged or overwhelmed, and we're going to try to kind of create some mechanisms for that. The whole purpose is not to make anybody have a spiritual breakdown of some sort. No. Like, that's not it. But it is to push us, and the trip itself kind of pushes us outside of our comfort zones, right? Like, even the folks that have been to Scotland before, y'all just said it, it's been a while since you've been there. So it's not like, we're going to hang out with our old friends and then, the rest of us are going to feel outside our comfort zone, right? Like, we're all going to be pushed outside that comfort zone a little bit, and that's okay. All right, so I will all but guarantee that you'll grow spiritually when we go on this trip. Now, it may not be in the way you think it will, but I promise that you'll grow. And pilgrimage, as I'm trying to say, is embodied prayer. It's an invitation to be fully present where we are. I don't know about you, but I love staffing like a summer camp or a thing like Vacation Bible School or Sawyerville Day Camp, because I can completely lose myself in that moment and in that community, and there's something beautiful about that. And pilgrimage does the same thing and invites us to be where we are. It's an invitation to kind of say, I don't need to bring my phone. I don't need the international plan on my phone. I don't need to take that necessarily with me. I'll check in with people. I'm not saying disconnect or be aloof, but I also do believe it's a way for us to kind of be where our feet are in a different way, because so much of our lives, I don't know if you've noticed this, but our lives are distracted, right? Like our lives are, there's a million things coming at us all the time right now. And so this is an invitation to kind of slow down and be present. All right, pause here for questions. What questions do you have about pilgrimage and what it is? Have I properly given a mysterious kind of veneer to what it is? Because it's different for every person. There's not one way to pilgrimage.
I just want to add, when you say it's a both and it kind of goes
Yeah.
back to what I said before. The reason why it's not a vacation, because it is a vacation in terms of you're vacating your normal life,
Yes.
right? And you are going to a new place, and you're going to see some beautiful things. And we're just hoping to put it on a foundation of something a little bit different than just, I'm going to hop on the tour bus and go visit all these really cool places and learn about them. We're just going to frame it and hold it, put it in a vessel, So it's a both and. Like, I don't want you to think, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this.
Right.
Because we're going to have a lot of fun, and there's a friend of mine who is up in Huntsville, and he takes small groups to Scotland a lot, and jokes about every part of the journey is part of the pilgrimage. Like, if we end up taking the train from Edinburgh to Glasgow, that's a possibility. We may do that. We may not. How do we hold this in the pilgrimage vessel?
Mm-hmm.
So every aspect of it, like getting to Atlanta Airport, getting through security.
Yes.
Like, how do you approach that from a thin space perspective?
Yes.
So that's kind of there.
Yeah, and I'll talk a little bit more about that and kind of the lead up to it and what the trip will, the spiritual aspects of these kind of 3 stages, and we'll get to that. Any other questions about what pilgrimage is before we keep going? Thank you for that. Mm-hmm. All right, so some examples. I've kind of already laid out one, right? We've got the Holy Land. That's one where people would go and walk in the footsteps of Jesus. It's still, probably in calmer days, will maybe resume, but as a way for us to kind of actually occupy the same place that Jesus, spent his time. And that's a powerful, powerful thing. In our own tradition, a lot of people will go to Canterbury, England, because of multiple reasons. That's the kind of seat of the Archbishop of Canterbury, who's not necessarily the head of the global Anglican Church, which the Episcopal Church kind of comes from, but is also a place where Thomas Becket was martyred, and there's a lot of history about that. You probably, whether you enjoyed it or not, you had to read the Canterbury Tales, or at least I had to. I remember that very fondly in high school. But I also had a mom who's like, that was her big deal. Like, she's a huge Thomas Becket fan. And so I grew up kind of learning about martyrdom and pilgrimage in that particular way. But that's a place where, a lot of people will travel to spend time and to, not just remember the kind of one layer of this is the church seat, but there's also this holiness of, when political and spiritual kind of worlds collide, there are sometimes consequences, which is what Thomas's martyrdom pointed to. The Camino is kind of a big one that people will sometimes think of, but I also kind of want to point out, like, locally, a lot of people will travel to Selma, right? Like, and now Montgomery and Birmingham and Anniston. Like, there are these markers now to remember what happened with the martyrs of Alabama and during the civil rights period. And so, we get to practice that locally. And I would invite you in the lead up to 2027, when we go on this pilgrimage, to think about, joining, we have our Peace and Reconciliation group at least takes one pilgrimage every year. So contemplate doing that next summer as a way to kind of prepare yourself spiritually for what we're talking about when we're going into this, not just as, oh, this is a fun vacation kind of moment. This is a spiritual journey that we're going on as well. And another kind of example of pilgrimage is to a holy site, like where people have been praying, not necessarily where somebody has died. That sort of, there are, those kind of, a lot of pilgrimages kind of tie into people giving up their life in witness of their faith. But there's also those who are showing giving up their lives in witness of their faith by like going and becoming a monk or a nun, or going and kind of living a deliberate life, whether that's in Taizé, which is in France, or Iona, which is an island in Scotland. We contemplated kind of throwing that in as a piece of this trip. It is such a remote place that we would be spending so much of our time getting there, and then if we wanted to go anywhere else, so we kind of recommend this as maybe an add-on before or after. If you're really thinking like, okay, this is my one time to go to Scotland, let me try to go out and at least see Iona. So, any more questions about kind of those examples of pilgrimage? And then I'm going to talk a little bit about why we're thinking of Scotland in particular. All right, so our pilgrimage is to Scotland, and it's not just because it's beautiful, though it is very much breathtaking. It's because Scotland is very much a part of our story as Episcopalians. We kind of usually think of our lineage as going directly back to the Church of England, right? Like we still have this connection there. We kind of trace most of our lineage, our Book of Common Prayer, through the kind of Church of England proper. But after the American Revolution ended, they would not ordain a bishop, right? Like in America, they were just like, no, you've just kind of kicked us out. You've said we can no longer be your empire. Watch Hamilton if you want a bigger story about that. Although Samuel Seabury does not get a nice treatment in that musical. So, when the American Revolution ended, the Episcopal Church was struggling to know what to do, and so instead of being able to go through the Church of England, we went to the Scottish Episcopal Church, which was a small but brave and spirit-led body, and they stepped forward. And in 1784, they ordained Samuel Seabury, making him the first bishop of the Protestant Episcopal Church in the United States. Now, it was a bold act of solidarity and trust that helped ensure what we call apostolic succession. So like the game of, I like to think of it as a game of electricity that goes all the way back, like the hands of the bishop have been, his body has been touched or her body has been touched by another bishop going like this, and then you go all the way back, you trace it all the way back to Peter, all the way back to Jesus. So we think of our apostolic succession as being traced through the Scottish Episcopal Church, but that's not all. In our Book of Common Prayer, because Scotland said, we will accept you, we will ordain this bishop, but we want something in return. We would like for you to change the shape of your liturgy. And when you celebrate the Holy Eucharist, we would like for you to incorporate this thing called the epiclesis. That's when we sanctify the bread and the wine. When I do, that's, some priests do this thing, some priests do this thing, some priests kind of just barely let the Spirit come down. But the idea is that the Spirit is there in that moment, and that shape comes directly from our Scottish ancestors. And so that's a huge influence. And you might note that our Episcopal Church flag, right? So it's got the St. George's cross very prominently, like going through the center, right? The red cross on the white background. But then in the top left corner, sort of like the American flag, right, has this field up in the top left corner. well, ours is in this X shape. Well, it's not really an X shape. That's a St. Andrew's cross. That is going, that is the Scottish cross that is on our Episcopal Church flag because it's connecting to our lineage there in Scotland. So we celebrate both of those kind of in the shape of our shield or our flag. But that's an important thing for me to kind of highlight for y'all, that we're kind of celebrating. A lot of times in Episcopal churches, we will go over to England and we will celebrate that part of our heritage. But we don't typically think of the Scottish part, which is, I think, a little bit more mysterious, maybe a little bit different, because there's some folks that think that actually the Scottish church was influenced by the Eastern Orthodox Church, which is more kind of mysterious. The Greek Orthodox Church is a little bit, stranger than we kind of think of the Catholic Church being, even though Roman Catholic Church is also kind of strange to us. So, but this pilgrimage is a way for us to walk back into all of that legacy and to give thanks for it, but also to see some kind of new inspiration or new parts of how our spiritual ancestors are still talking to us. And so that's kind of the reasoning why, Rosemary and I have been talking about this. Others have been we've been asking others about where should we go, and this just feels like the right space for us, and it feels like an interesting place. I mean, I've been to England a couple of times and really enjoyed it, and there's so much history there, but the quiet, wild, and holy places of Scotland really, I think, are going to speak to us. So any questions about examples of pilgrimage or why we're going to Scotland? All right. So how pilgrimage works, this is what I was kind of alluding to a minute ago when Rosemary was talking about, even going to the Atlanta airport. So there's the preparation. There's the, next almost 2 years. I guess we're down to how many months? 18? No, a little bit more. 20-ish months. But, this preparation really has already begun. You've already contemplated this enough that you're actually sitting in this meeting, right? And so, start praying about this. Start opening your heart. What are your expectations? What are your hopes? Where are you willing to be flexible, and where are you not willing to be flexible? And it also includes this kind of time of discernment. Why do you feel drawn to this? What spoke to you about this? And then it also involves the practical stuff that we'll kind of talk maybe a little bit more when Rosemary's up here. But it involves like fundraising and planning and passports and also prayer. So that's the kind of first piece. And we'll have some, I'm thinking that kind of in the several months leading up to it, probably the 6 months ahead of time, we'll meet at least once a month. Mm-hmm. And then maybe even, 6 weeks out, we might meet, bi-weekly or even weekly, just because I want us to build up a rapport so we all kind of get to know each other a little bit, and we know, what is it? What are our hopes? What are our dreams? Because it's the sort of thing that you get out what you put into it. God magnifies and multiplies it in certain ways, but it's definitely something that requires preparation. So that's the before piece. The journey itself. I honestly, I'm not saying that it's not going to be fun and not wonderful. It's going to be phenomenal. But on some level, the trip itself is the least important piece of the pilgrimage, because it's like how you prepare yourself and what you bring back are going to have the biggest impact on your life. But you don't get any of that without the trip. So it's, again, a both and. Sorry, we're throwing out all these kind of big, heady theological things, but it's like, the journey itself is required for it, but it's also, it's not the thing that you're going to be living day in, day out. Your life is. And so how does your life get impacted by this? But every piece of the travel is part of that journey, right? So from the airport, getting stuck in traffic, trying to go somewhere, all that kind of stuff, all of it is part of the pilgrimage. From footpaths to holy places, all of it. And some of it's not going to be glamorous, right? Pilgrimage includes sometimes early mornings, and long walks, and sometimes you don't want to share anything when we're asking you to share something, and sometimes you just want to be like, just Seth, stop talking. That kind of moment, right? So, but the journey itself also includes laughter and usually like a whole bunch of silly inside jokes that, evolve over the course of time. It includes prayer and beauty and awe. And so just be prepared kind of by being open to all of that. And then finally is this kind of concept of the return. When you come back differently, right? Like that's the hope. And it's actually not the end. It's really the beginning, right? When you arrive back home, that's the beginning of this new life. So how does that journey get woven into your life? So even after the pilgrimage, we'll spend some time meeting for maybe once a month for the next 6 months afterwards. We'll make these gatherings fun, don't worry. But like, I would like for us to kind of think, how is this changing my life? How do I not just allow this to become most people don't have photo albums on their shelf, but it's not just a little thing that you have in your phone that you can click on. It's something that affects your day in, day out life. So pilgrimage hopefully changes how we see the world, our church, and ourselves. All right? So the potential gifts, what you might return with, some practical things, a stunning roll of, beautiful photos of landscapes and cathedrals and sheep-covered hills.
Haricus, that's what those cows are called.
And haricus.
Haricus.
And maybe a deeper appreciation for our history and the beauty of a different place. But hopefully there's also some kind of spiritual, emotional pieces, like a renewed sense of calling or a sacred memory that you can kind of revisit to center yourself. A word or image that continues to guide your life, a new friendship or a healed wound. Like you just don't know what can happen on these pilgrimages. So pilgrimage is more than worth it. You can't really calculate the cost of it. I mean, I know we're going to talk about the practical aspects of the cost of it. But yeah, that's yes, you have to pay that cost, but there's something deep that is born out of this that you cannot calculate the cost of. So I'm excited for us, and I want to say, do y'all have any more questions before I turn it over to Rosemary? All right. Did we already pass out maps? Y'all already got maps?
Yeah.
Okay.
How do we record his name? Do I just need
Yeah,
to stand
you just stand right here. Yeah.
Okay.
You'll just stand. You'll see yourself in that little...
All right, I'll see myself.
Yes. Let me grab my coffee.
So, I'm not contagious anymore, but I did have COVID, so can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Early on when Seth and I, started dreaming about this, I found this book, Pilgrim's Guide to Scotland. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And it actually has multiple routes of, if you're going to go there and spend a whole lot of time there. And you can either drive them or walk them, But every route has an opening prayer, a midday prayer, and a prayer when you're finished with that part of the pilgrimage. So I thought I will start this part of it with the prayer that is at the beginning, where we're starting out on a first morning. Ask the loveliness of the earth, of the sea, of the wide, airy spaces of the sky. Ask the pattern of the stars, the sun making light with its rays, the moon softening the darkness of the night that follows. Ask living things that move in the waters, which linger on land, which soar through the air. Ask the souls that are hidden and the bodies that feel and see, visible things that must be steered and invisible things that guide. Ask all these things, and they will answer, look, see, we are lovely. Their loveliness is their confession, and these lovely but ever-changing things Who has made them, except beauty unchanging? And that was by St. Augustine. So about a year and a half ago, I came to Seth and I said, Seth, I want to take the kids to Taizé, France. It was a big place back when my kids were coming up through the youth program. It's a very prayerful place. And but it's not as big of a deal now. And where that came from is my love for this church, my love for the kids that I'm working with, and to show them how to dream something into like actually happening. And Seth said to me, how about we think about Scotland? And I was like, well, why Scotland? You know, because I had just been to Scotland. I was there in May of 2022. Was it 22? Yeah, May of 2022. And then he talked about all the stuff he just talked about with Scotland. And then he said, how about we think about making it a multi-generational pilgrimage? I was like, okay, let me think about that. You know, you can ask Nick. I'm always like, okay, you know. And that's how we got to Scotland. And it's a beautiful place for us to have landed on. The other part that drove this is there was a small group of young people from St. Stephen's that did do the Camino, part of the Camino Trail in Spain this summer in June. And my vision was there are Camino-like things you can do in Scotland also. So my brain, I just saw this picture this week, that there's brains that are keyboards and there are brains that are palettes, like for paint. I'm a palette brain. I'm not a keyboard brain. So I'm like, okay, you know. So that's how we landed on this. And so ultimately the final itinerary, if you will, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, will be guided by the people who actually decide, yes, we're going to come and we're going to do this. And I got that direction from a couple of the travel agents that I've talked to already. We haven't picked a travel agent to help us yet, but we will have somebody that's doing all that logistical stuff for us. But they said you need to get your group finally, and then you build your itinerary around that based on their interests and their abilities. But what Seth and I originally envisioned, and I don't know if it will come to this or not, will depend on who actually comes, is 3 different groups of people with 3 different leaders. One group with the youth, young adults, that would be rising 10th graders and above. A family group, that would be people traveling with younger children, i.e. Seth, yep. And anybody rising 9th grade and lower. So we need to make a decision about whether or not, we don't think anybody can travel alone unless you're rising 10th grader and above, and that may even change. And then an older group. But the idea that we have is that we will all start out together. We may all go to the same place.
You mean each day?
Each day, yes. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but that's what we envision. But we will ultimately, that will ultimately be driven by how many people who actually says, yes, I'm going. So it's all kind of in flux. But if you look at there's a handout that says time frame, late May to early June 2025. It is a year of general convention, so we want to get it in sometime between when school ends and when Seth has to start thinking about going to general convention, which he'll probably be going to that. 2027, I'm sorry. I have COVID. Yes, that would mean we're time traveling backwards. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, you didn't know about that, did you? You thought repelling was going to be the the length of the trip, again, it's 9 to 11 days, which is 2 days of travel and 7 to 9 days of pilgrimage. Now, if you want to add on, we can work that out too, and we can get you in touch with the travel agent who could maybe help you with that. If you want to do some things before or do some things after. I personally would love, after we finish, to go out to Iona and maybe go to the Outer Hebrides, and I'll show you where those are. Jonathan Chesney's also going to be a resource for us, by the way. Okay. He's a priest that came out of our diocese, but he's done a lot of personal pilgrimage in Scotland. We're thinking the airport will be Atlanta. The estimated cost, I had to go up from what I originally put out there based on the travel agents I talked to, and this is really in flux. It depends on lots and lots and lots of things, but it will include airfare, hotel accommodations, all of our ground transport, getting around from place to place. Like if we do take that train, all those tickets will be purchased in advance and all that kind of stuff. Some meals, maybe many meals, I just don't know. I'm thinking the commitment date with the deposit, I didn't write that on there, so with deposit, which I don't know how much that will be either, will be April of 2026. So April of 2026, that gives us a whole year, a little bit more than a year, to finalize things, and we set payment plans and that kind of thing. If you look at this map that we gave you, I found this online, and I'm going to try and help you. Can everybody find Edinburgh? It's not easy. It's on the right side where that little notch comes in. You'll see Dunfermline. I don't have. Okay. Do you see where Edinburgh is? Okay. If you go, it's a big dot. If you go a little like an angle up to the right, you'll see St. Andrews. Okay. Circle St. Andrews. Okay. Go up to this little notch right here. Okay, and right in there is Inverness, Culloden, Loch Ness. Okay, and if you come down a little to the left, you'll see Fort William, Glencoe below that, Oban below that. Do you see that? Yeah. To the left of it is Mull, and to the left of that is Staffa, and to below that is Iona. And then if you go back out to right smack dab in the center, almost directly across from Edinburgh, to the left is Glasgow. Okay. That's basically where we will be. I envision that we will be. Well, in maybe not all those places, but in that general area. If you this section right out here, that is the Outer Hebrides. That's really rustic and wild and beautiful and mystical, spiritual. And just inside of that is the Isle of Skye. And if you watch Outlander, that's they sing the song about Skye. I have been to the Isle of Skye. It is absolutely stunning. Getting there, I just don't know that we can do that. But it depends on who actually signs up. We might be able to do that because it is really incredible. Just below Skye is where Iona is. We probably won't get out to Iona, but they do have like 7-day retreats out there. And it turns out if we have a group of people that fits that profile and want to do something like that, we could end up shifting everything and go to Iona for a week. It just really depends. So I circle all those things because I want you to start like looking, like delving into it and exploring and researching the places. Oban Mustafa. I've not been to that area, but my friend from Huntsville mentioned those as really critically good places to go to. So I just wanted to give you that little framework and then kind of go through the itinerary, but I'm not going to go through it in great detail because, like I said, it's going to change. But you'll see on here that I have the tentative broad itinerary, and it's a day 1 to day 11. And it just depends. Like, we might be able to come back on day 10. I just don't know. So just be flexible with me. Have a palate brain for now. But day 1, we would arrive in Edinburgh and tour the castle. It will depend on our flight times, when we arrive and all that. So our idea is we don't want to be switching hotels every night. So we want to stay in 2 or 3 places and base out of those and do day pilgrimage out of those places. So you'll see that day 2 and day 3 are day pilgrimages based out of Edinburgh, and I list some possible points of interest. The routes 3 to 7, I shouldn't have included them. They refer to this book, the routes, because they list 14 different routes in here. So, but that's really more for me. On day 4, we would travel to our second base location, and I'm thinking maybe Inverness or Fort William. And we'd go through the Cairngorms, which if you look on that map, the Cairngorm Mountains are gorgeous. Well, they're really close to the Malt Whiskey Trail. They're just below that. They really are. Incredibly beautiful place. So we would do a couple of day trips out of there. And then on day 7, we would travel to our third base location, maybe Glasgow. So I'm kind of thinking. And then day trips out of Glasgow, and then travel back to Edinburgh on day 10 and depart Edinburgh on day 11. That's kind of the flow I'm thinking of. Our daily flow, cross out days 2 to 9. It's our daily flow. Every day we're together. We'll do some kind of morning gathering where we set the table for our day and start with a prayer as a group. Then we will have our daily pilgrimage. The younger people, more people that are like to hike and be outside, they'll go do their itinerary. People who are less mobile will do their itinerary. And if we have a family group, they'll go probably on one of the 2 itineraries. Just don't know. And then we'll gather back in the evening, and I set a moment closest to Christ, like a sharing of where you felt close to God that day, and then a closing prayer for the day. Is there anything you want to add to that? Because we didn't talk about, Raquel.
Okay, so like day 4 says check into the hotel. And then all the places seem kind of far away when you look at the map. So are we going to be at different hotel points?
No.
To go to these places, or
No. What do you mean hotel points?
like all the things you had a circle. Like if we land someplace, I might be missing something, and are in a hotel, but then take this journey. Like the hotel is way back here. Like how do you get to
Right.
that part?
Well, so that's what we're once we get the group settled, then we'll be able to work those pieces out. But although this looks like very big, I've just been there. Like I landed in Edinburgh the day we flew, and we drove out to Isle of Skye that first day. So it's not far. It looks huge on this map, but if you look at it on a big map, Scotland's not very big. And you can get to a lot of those places. You can move around to a lot of those places. But if we stay at Fort William. Say we go from Edinburgh, we leave Edinburgh and we go to Fort William. We might, I'm thinking Inverness is probably better, but Inverness is probably better because we can leave Inverness and go down to Loch Ness and go down to the Caledonian Canal and even go down to Fort William and go back to Inverness. It's not that far.
So at the end of the day, you end up going
Back, yes. Because that's when I said, that's what I called the, our second location based on our hotel. It's basically that. So we're like 3 nights in each hotel, so we're not packing up and going.
Yeah, and it's just basically circling
Yeah.
the things that are closest. I mean, but at least according to Google, Professor Google just said that the entirety of Scotland is about the size of South Carolina. So
Yeah.
it's not a huge landmass.
Yeah.
You'll see
So
a
it's
lot of
three, so it sounds like you're saying it's 3 different hotels.
Yeah.
That's what we're thinking. Originally, I was trying to do it with 2, but I think for the very reasons you're picking out, I think it'd be too much. So I think we can do 3, and we'll get guidance from our travel agent. But right now, I think it'll be an Edinburgh, maybe Fort William. There's a cool lock system in Fort William that is so neat. There's like 7 locks in a row, and that's a magical thing in and of itself too. Like, think of how a lock works. Or not a lock. The lock means lake. Anyway, we can talk about that later. Other questions about, so imagine flying into Edinburgh, going to a hotel, staying at that hotel for 3 days with spoking out on pilgrimage experiences. Day 4, traveling to next location, checking into hotel, pilgrimaging out from there. If we stay in Fort William, we might even be able to take a day out to Isle of Skye, and go all the way up to Ulig and come back down. There's a ferry place there. It's just so beautiful. And then day 7, travel to the 3rd place, stay 7, 8, and 9, 3 nights in that hotel, spoke out from there, and then back to Edinburgh. And the good news is when I went, they had not put a lot of direct flights back yet into Edinburgh because we were still in COVID protocol. But now you can get direct flight to Edinburgh, so you don't have to go through Heathrow, which is woohoo. Yeah. So I'm not going to go into the rest of the stuff that's on here, but I thought it might be nice for you to have a little bit about the Scottish Episcopal Church. One of the ideas or thoughts that I had is I might reach out to each of the dioceses. There's 7 dioceses in Scotland, and they're listed on page 3. I thought about reaching out to each one of those dioceses and asking, where do you take your people on pilgrimage from your, not each of them, because I wouldn't go talk, I would talk to the Edinburgh people, the Glasgow and Galloway people, and somebody else. And then I listed some Scottish saints. You can see because of the formatting that I just copy and pasted this, but it just gives you a little bit information about some of the famous saints along the way there. What other questions do you have, or comments, or?
So what's the next step for folks?
That's a good question. I would say go home and pray about, really think about whether this is something you want to do. And, we need a final commitment by April, but I'm thinking, what month are we in? September? I don't know, maybe
I don't know what the next steps are. What are the next steps?
So I'm thinking, y'all do the homework that Rosemary has asked you to do. Do a little bit more research about where you might want to go, especially amongst the places that you've listed around Edinburgh, around Inverness, around Glasgow. And then we will send out a little form that's going to ask you which places you're most interested in visiting. And maybe have a couple other more detailed questions, just about like what sort of sites might you be interested in, and maybe your gauged activity ability.
Yeah.
Because it'll be helpful for us to know, if the whole group hates walking, we're not going to take y'all on like, a 7-mile,
Right.
hike up the side of a mountain.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Right.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Another thing is, like, you guys will give us information, I'm sure, about, like, how to pay, where to pay. Is
Yeah.
there
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
be
Yeah.
particular
We're
place
just-
to hold
yeah.
your money?
Yeah. We're just, yes. And we have to work all that out. We're not, yeah. And my guess is that I'm looking for a third person to help me with the administrative parts of this. I won't tell you who I've asked because I don't want you to harass her. But there will be somebody here that will be your point person for all those kinds of things. It won't be me.
And we'll also,
And it'll probably
we know we are doing some fundraising.
yes.
And I think it would be helpful for us to do that, kind of across the board, because I certainly know that our youth don't have $5,000 sitting, under their couch cushions. But also, I think a lot of us
Don't have $5,000 right now.
Don't have $5,000 in our couch cushions. So we're going to do some fundraising, and it'll probably look like something both in 2026 and 2027.
Oh yeah.
To try to have a couple of opportunities and to reach out beyond the walls of Holy Apostles.
Oh yeah. I'm glad you said that. So about the fundraising, one of the things that St. Stephen's did, and they're a different parish, but they had a big dinner, and it had a big dinner with a silent auction, and that was really largely to help fund the kids to be able to go. The kids, they went to Spain. I think they were there 10 days, 12 days, and each kid only ended up having to pay, I think, $1,500 for their trip. I'm more inclined for us to do a few bigger things than a bunch of little things, but we're still working that out. There was another question though. The travel agents will help us all with those funding things too, Raquel, the payment plans, because they do this all the time. Teachers, I have teacher friends that, Jean, have you ever taken groups traveling when you were a teacher?
Not to Scotland.
Right. Yeah, I have a friend who's taken youth, high school kids internationally, and we'll find that we just didn't want to engage anybody definitively yet, travel agent wise, until we see whether or not we have enough people. And we are going to, I had meant to do it this week, but I was so sick. We are going to reach out. Well, Bishop G wants to go with us, right? She's expressed a real strong interest in going with us. But I'm going to reach out to some other parishes. We had talked about the smaller parishes, but we might just let the whole diocese know that we're going. So if we need more people, like if we don't, we did have about 70 people sign up on the initial interest form of being very interested, in the trip. So there's just a lot of people couldn't come today. So I would say we'll make a final decision we'll have clearly we'll have an itinerary, ready before anybody has to say, yes, I'm going or not, because I know that would drive my thing. Yeah.
Just a quick question about the time frame.
Yeah.
Is there any flexibility in the time frame at all?
I don't think so.
What
Yeah, like the time frame of going and when we're going.
Yeah, I have constraints,
Uh-huh.
so I can't travel the first week of the month, so.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, it could be late May, but I'm not sure if we'll be able to avoid the first week of June entirely.
Yeah.
I worry a little bit because I know some schools let out pretty. I can't guarantee when they'll let out, but I know it's usually pretty.
So if they let out May 20th, just picking that date out of the hat, we might be able to get on a plane May 21st, right? And be gone for 10 days and be back by the very early part of June. But we have restraints. It's not just Seth and General Convention, but the summer months with the kids, with all their camps.
I understand.
Yeah, but we'll take that into,
We're trying to make it so that it kind of fits that window between when most schools let out and when most camps get really fully underway.
because we have Sawyerville that the kids volunteer for. We have special session that the kids volunteer for. We have their own camp sessions
And
that they go to.
I'm not trying to make any of our youth staff members for Camden Dell, but I envision that some of them may be interested in applying in a couple summers.
Mhm.
That would be people that would want to go on this trip.
Right.
So I don't want to. It's just it's kind of hard. It's a hard. It's
Oh,
hard
I
thing.
understand.
Yeah.
Trust me, I understand.
Yeah.
Those constraints have kept me from doing other things in the past.
Yeah. Well, we'll just pray about that.
Yeah.
Seth, when do you think we'll make, or have we made a final decision? Like we're going.
I think we're going. I mean, unless I know there were a lot of people that were probably planning trips in 2020 that had to make huge changes, right?
Barring another worldwide pandemic.
Right. Yeah. Barring another worldwide pandemic or war breaking out in Scotland, I think
We're going.
plan.
Yeah. We'll go with 10 people. We'll go with 50 people. So we're going.
Right. And so we hope that you will help us kind of guide, since you're already interested. You get to kind of be on the ground floor of what does this look like.
Mhm.
But I mean, we'll share this survey with anybody who expressed interest as well as anybody that's kind of on the fence or thinking about it. So, I mean, I know like our parish administrator Kim McAdams, her husband's a priest at St. Francis of Assisi in Indian Springs, and they're interested in going.
Right.
They were going to be here, but when she found out that we were recording it, she was like, I'll just watch the recording.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Kim.
Yeah, say hello.
Will the recording be like a link on the happenings or how?
Yeah, I'll put it on our YouTube page. So if you have somebody that is interested, we can share this riveting.
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna be YouTube famous.
I'm going to be YouTube famous. Oh.
Yeah.
So do some looking at some of these places. Think about what we talked about today. Seth, I'm in my initial recovery from COVID. Seth is just not too far, but
Yeah, I'm a little bit ahead of
a
you.
little bit ahead of me. So I wish we would have thought about, okay, this is what's going to happen next. But we'll send some kind of follow-up out. If you'll look at the saints, look at the area, look at the places, list your questions, concerns, and we'll be sending a follow-up out to everybody who's filled out a sheet, not just everybody who was here. And then we reconvene sometime, maybe, I don't know, in early November to,
We may have another info session, or we may just.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, we may just be asking folks to kind of make a not a final commitment, but because you're
final commitment is really April of 2026.
Right.
When you have to put a deposit down. But we'll have a better sense maybe by November of like what the actual itinerary is, given your feedback to us.
Right.
So in the next, kind of between now and the end of September, be on the lookout for a email from us about, you'll see this linked in Happenings, the video, but then be on the lookout for a form that has just a few questions about what your interests are.
And I will tell you, I'm still a fan, and if you need to go, it's fine. I am still a fan of like the travel books. Is it Fodor? Is that how you pronounce it? Fodor? Like, I love those books. If you want to get a book like that, I love, and a map, a really good map. I haven't been able to put my hands on mine. I may have lent them to somebody, and I can't remember who I lent them to. So, any final questions? Okay.
Thanks, y'all.
All right, great. 10:22, pretty good. All right.